humble to it. And we've got people popping on here, just kind of straggling, Meredith, okay? And so we're just going to give it a couple of minutes, okay, before we get started. So those of you who are on right now, we're going to get started here in a few minutes. So please feel free to go get yourself a cup of coffee, right, and kind of get settled in. I think we'll get started right at 7:35. Okay, so we've got a few minutes to wait for these last stragglers, and then we're going to get rolling.
You're muted, Paul.
I am muted. I was talking to myself, making sure everything was all good. Looking at the awesome attendance that we have so far this morning. So, good morning to everybody. Thank you so much for spending this fine January morning with us. It's nice and warm outside, so everybody's hopefully taking care of themselves. And Happy New Year to everybody. 2025 is now upon us, and hopefully we're all geared up and ready for a great year. Before we get started today, wanted to discuss the 2025 calendar that we have put together amongst a couple of our contractor members and a couple of our industry partners, and wanted to share with you what we have on deck for 2025. And then what I'd like to do, in tradition of our safety forums, is I'd like to get into a small roundtable discussion on near misses, things that maybe you have noticed out there on job sites or within your organization that you were able to address proactively to prevent possible catastrophe, right? So we always like to get into some near misses and share information to each other so that if one contractor is seeing something out there and they caught a near miss, let's share that so that we can hopefully mitigate another contractor, right, from having those types of risks. So to start off, let's talk about 2025. Okay, so 2025, thanks everybody for joining us for today's forum topic, and that is our annual OSHA update. Super thankful for Meredith and her OSHA team always for spending time with us. They really support us throughout the year with different safety initiatives, and it's always a pleasure to see them at the beginning as they can help us kind of set the pace for our focuses moving forward. So thank you so much to OSHA for being here for today. In February, we're going to have a roundtable discussion about the IEC Rocky Mountain Safety Assessment. Now, every one of you or all of our contractors should have received award submissions and a safety evaluation form recently in your email. If not, we can get you the information. But we really want to talk about the safety assessment. And this is an assessment that's a series of, I think it's something like 40 questions. It's not too many, but it's really to take a look at take a look and evaluate your internal structure as far as your safety program. And it gives it a point scale. Okay, so anywhere that you're not reaching the top amount of points or areas that your company or your organization can spend a little time on to fortify, right, the foundation of your safety, and as well identify or help us identify over here at IEC Rocky Mountain what we can do to maybe supply or provide some resources for you to get to those higher scores. So in February, that's February 26th, we're going to be going over thoroughly the IEC Rocky Mountain Safety Assessment Form. In March, we're trying to do some trenching and dirt movement safety. That I was thinking of maybe doing that in person, but after talking with a few people, we might not be able to do that in person. That might be just a regular forum. Because what we are trying to do here in 2025 is we're trying to get back to some more in-person real safety trainings, not just forums. Forums are great, right? They're great to keep us on top of, you know, safety toolbox talks, right, and things to be wary of. But are they really trainings? And we really want to get back into trainings. Okay, so a few items when I go through here, I'll identify as trainings. They're not 1 hour forums. Forums. They'll be whatever the amount of time for these training classes will take. Okay, we'll just start offering them as part of our safety program. So trench walk in March, that's March 26th. In April, we're trying to link up with Underwriters Laboratories and to do an in-person arc flash training. So that's a training we're trying to hold. And whether we go with Underwriters Laboratories or any of the National Testing Research Laboratories or NERDLs, we might find another resource for that, but we're really trying to do some real world, real-time stuff. So Arc Flash, April 23rd. May, we're hoping to actually use, or we're hoping to do that in person as well, because May is the OSHA stand down for fall protection. And so what we're trying to do is do some simulated fall arrest systems as well as rescues ascending and descending. So that will be an in-person training. In June starts heating up, and we're hoping maybe we can get Meredith back and the OSHA team in June to talk once again with us about OSHA heat. In July, this is going to be another safety class versus a forum. July 23rd, we're trying to partner up and do mobile elevated working platforms to get some certificates per the ANSI 29. Okay, so that's something that I know a lot of contractors would really like to have their workers do, to go through a, you know, mobile elevated working platform training. So that's going to be an in-person class. In August, we're going to discuss, this will be a forum, we're going to discuss the borrowed worker, right? I know that a lot of contractors have to go through temp agencies and workforce agencies to help out, all right, when it comes to being understaffed, as well as, you know, our borrowed worker program that we provide here at IEC Rocky Mountain. It's really important that whenever we receive new personnel, whether that's through your organization or it's a transfer from workforce or it's a borrowed worker, it's important that they're up to speed on the safety protocols and safety hazards present on that job site the day they show up, right? So it's important that they're in the know as far as our workforce, as well as what contractors need to know, you know, who's liable for what if something does happen, right? So We're going to discuss that, the borrowed worker, that's August 27th. In September, it's the stand down again. Okay, that's the stand down for mental health and suicide prevention. That will also be an in-person session. Now, that won't be necessarily a forum or a class, but it may be something like a mental health first aid or CPR, right? It's going to be an actual class versus a forum. So it'll be a little bit more time than your standard 1 hour. That is September 24th. We're trying to have that. October 22nd, we're trying to discuss air quality. We might do that with if OSHA is available too. We also want to bring in some of our industry people to talk about different respirators and different engineering controls that we can use to ensure, right, that when we're in enclosed job sites and we got multiple trades going on, that the air we're breathing is sustainable. So air quality, October 22nd. Right now for November, we're kind of debating this date, November 12th. It could be either the 12th or the 19th. I'm not sure, but we're debating that right now. But we're also going to have an in-person in November for confined space. Okay, where we can really start taking a look at what that is. What is a confined space, right? What type of EAPs we need to put together? What does a JSA look like that for that? And, because it's going to be an in-person class, maybe really see what it's like to have to rescue somebody from a confined space. So that'll be a good one in November. And then December, we're going to talk about, this will be a forum, this will be temp power. We're going to talk about temp power on the job site, right? What you need to know. And we may bring in Excel for that. A lot of contractors don't know this, but Excel, I know much about this, but Excel actually has what they call their Blue Book, which is their standard for temporary services on job sites. And so we might take a look at Cliff Note version of that and have Excel give us the rundown on what we need to do. Okay, so any questions before we get into near misses? Any ideas amongst this group of safety topics that may be better suited for electrical? So I'm open to any of those suggestions. Any questions on that? Don't make it too easy for me on this awesome Wednesday morning.
Only suggestion I have is the August session of the borrowed worker. Typically, we ramp up through the summer is usually when we bring on a lot of loan labor.
Okay.
I don't know if it would make sense to have that forum before we start ramping up, just so that
Well, give me an
everybody's kind of
example,
familiar.
Jesse. What do you think? When you do ramping up, aren't you got don't contractors generally start ramping up in the spring?
For us, historically, we ramp up late May, early June, and then
Late May, early June.
we usually hold that till middle of September.
What if we were to move it to March?
I think that makes sense.
March, that way you've got time to strategize, right? And it'd be in the know in April, May, right? So when you start your hiring initiatives. Let me put that down, right? Let me see what I can do here, Jesse. That's a great suggestion, and that's why I asked it, right? When we came up with these ideas, it was kind of a smaller group, right? So it's great to get the feedback. So we can take a look at moving some of this around so that it's better fitted to the calendar or during the particular season that you run into. Is there any other suggestions?
Off the top of my head, might
Okay,
end up with
thank
a
you,
couple
Jesse. I
down the road.
appreciate that. But from the group, is there anything else that you think about this schedule that we need to take a different look at or change a topic? I'm gonna take that as you guys are okay with it. Okay, so thank you, Jesse, and we'll look at it, brother. So let's now get into the next section, and we can go through this kind of quick. We are in the winter season, but let's talk about near misses, right? Things that we've noticed amongst our job site or within our organization that we were able to address proactively to eliminate the reactive behavior of a safety issue. So anybody got any near misses, anything you want to share with the team so that they're up to speed and maybe have a proactive approach to it? Anybody?
Yeah, actually, I have one.
All right, Tom, thank you.
No problem. And it actually kind of relates to the borrowed worker conversation you guys were just having.
Okay.
Um, I was recently working on a job, finishing it up, and we had some temp worker or some borrowed workers from another company, and we were going through doing our final torque specs or torquing of everything and just inspections of everything of the work they had done, and noticed that they had crossed the B and C phase on a 400 amp parallel uh, main
While they were
breaker.
torquing it?
Yeah, they just lined it up, and it was pair lugs of two black, or the black, red, and blue. He had a red and blue swapped,
Oh,
and luckily there was no power to it at that point. And we were probably a couple days away from turning the power on, but luckily it was spotted and corrected. But I would definitely say keep an eye on barred workers. I haven't had much good experience with them personally. I just finished up a 6 month job in Golden, and we had a handful of borrowed workers come out just because job uh, calls for it, or we need labor and whatnot. And then it ended up costing us more time in the end because we had to go back and fix their stuff or what have you. So I would definitely say keep them with your trusted guys, and just keep an eye on them overall, because that could have been not only a huge catastrophe, but it would have potentially burned down the building that it was in. So, uh,
for sure, right? You don't know sometimes when someone's showing up on that job site, right, Tom, that what their experience is, whether they've done those types of connections before. Uh, Definitely. And whenever, I think that it's probably not a bad practice. I know we all need good qualified people, but whenever you have somebody on the job site where you're not sure of their capabilities, maybe they have a less important task.
yeah, well,
Maybe there's an all-star team on those big things like that could cause catastrophes, right? And,
yeah,
and maybe the temp workers, it depends on what your need is, right? I'm not saying that that's the cure-all, man, but
no, that definitely started going through our protocols and stuff of what we had them do and what we were delegating them, and even their experience levels, because the guy that did it was a journeyman. So that was kind of a shocking thing to hear and see. But
so they had the A and C phased reverse. Is that what you're saying?
B and C,
I'm sorry?
B and C, so it was a parallel run.
B and C, I gotcha.
So yeah, and then like I said, parallel run. So it would have definitely been a big boom when we turned it on. So
Yeah, yeah. Ay,
but
ay, ay.
yeah, that would be my near
Yeah,
miss.
definitely, right? Definitely. Geez.
Yeah,
And you never really know, right? So it's a good thing that you've got, right, Tom, some a quality check, right, before you went through and energized everything, right? You didn't take people's word for it. At least you went out there and ensured, right, that
yeah,
those connections were correct. So at least, Tom, you have already put together some proactive steps to ensure some catastrophic events don't happen. So thanks for sharing that. That is great information, and which is the reason why, I think as a topic, we really do need to discuss what that borrowed worker program looks like. So
yeah.
thank
Agreed.
you. Great info, man. Thank
Yeah.
you. Anybody else have any near misses, things that we should share with the team to just to assist in the daily safety operations? Joe, you got anything? Nothing, man?
I mean, the only thing we really had was we had a job up in Idaho Springs, changing that 3 cabins, and we were changing out all the services, the 200 amp services. And there's like snow drifts on one of the cabins, and it like the first day everything was solid, so it was easy. Like it's actually like not slippery where it was, and it's easy to walk through. Then it warmed up, and the next day it was like they'd step, and it was like a 1 foot drop every step. So then we just had to figure out a new path to get up there. But it was pretty interesting because like it was solid as all, and it was like it was actually like not too bad getting to it, and then that shift overnight and that like warm thing we had a few weeks ago just completely changed like the path taken. So it was all things that was kind of like they were already being careful about it, but it was one of those that one of my service guys was like, yeah, I took a little spill there, everything's good, but we got a new path. So that's
Yeah, and whenever sometimes, this isn't a bad practice, right? Whenever you've got a crew of people and they're in and out of an area, right, that's slick, right, that is frozen over, it's not a bad idea to keep maybe some salt or some gravel or something like that in the van, right? Just to kind of, especially if you're back and forth. And I know that you have to clean your feet off whenever you go inside and all that stuff, right? So there's all kinds of different issues when it comes to that. But yeah, tis the season, right? And that's Colorado too, right? So it'll get super cold at night, but in the day, stuff is melting down a little bit, but then it freezes again at night, and you got to be super careful. It can change from day to day for sure.
yeah. But yeah, that's really the only thing I got on our end.
Awesome, thanks, Joe. Appreciate that, man. And happy New Year to you, man. It's good to see you.
Happy New Year. Good to see you, man.
Anybody else? Anybody else have any near misses to discuss? If not, I'm very humbled that she spends her time with us as much as she does, but I'd like to introduce you to Meredith Post with OSHA. She comes in and she drops the knowledge down on us every January as far as, what the previous year recordables kind of look like, what it is that maybe OSHA is looking at or has in the crystal ball for maybe 2025, and just assist us with, ensuring that our documentation and our paperwork and we're up to the current standard or policy that OSHA has in place. So Meredith, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Happy New Year to you. And I'm going to go ahead and just pass it on over to you.
All right, let me share my screen with you guys. Can you see it?
We can see it. Thank you.
Okay. So yes, my name's Meredith Post. I am a compliance assistant specialist out of the Denver area office. So technically I cover mostly northern Colorado, but I do overlap with Hector down in Inglewood on some of the stuff that we're doing. So I'm going to go through what we possibly have coming up with the change in administration. We don't know if we're going to continue with our rulemaking that we have in place or what we've got going on. So we're still kind of waiting for the crystal ball to tell us what we're going to be doing in the next year. But OSHA safety is a core value. We want to make sure that you have it across the board, across your company, not just site specific. And we want to make sure that you're including all workers regardless of the working capability of that employee. This year, OSHA did realign our area offices a little bit, or our regions a little bit. So what was region 9 and 10 is now the San Francisco region. And then we created a new region to include Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, and a little bit of Florida. We've just noticed that there's a greater demand for OSHA folks in that new orange area. So that's going to be the Birmingham area. Our region didn't change. All we did was go from region 8 to the Denver region, still cover the same states. In Colorado, we did a little bit of county realignment. Inglewood took more of our Western Slope jurisdiction. So Inglewood's going to be covering more of that Western Slope for it to help out with our workload. Today, I'm going to go over our emphasis programs, our inspection process, standards and common hazards that we find. I'm going to stop my video because I'm lagging on my end and it's a little distracting to me. So I'm just going to stop doing that. Rulemaking updates, severe injury report, and answer any questions you guys may have. So I'm just going to go over quickly what we do in case any of you have not had an interaction with OSHA before. We are known for developing our health and safety standards and conducting inspections and enforcement. But the other thing that we do is compliance assistance, people like me in local area offices that provide information, OSHA updates. We can come out and do training for you guys. just kind of on our standards. So we're gonna just be doing some training with you guys, doing some visiting. If you guys want to contact me, my information, I'll have it at the end of the program. Our national emphasis programs have not changed much this year. The newest ones that we came into effect last year were fall hazards and warehousing and distribution centers. I don't see any of these emphasis programs going away. Right now, like I had mentioned, OSHA is operating as business as normal until we're told differently. So these should remain in place for the next year. We have regional emphasis programs as well. The newest ones that we've added to the region, again, a couple of years ago, was scrap recycling and wood manufacturing and processing. Our fall prevention emphasis program went away when the national office instituted the national emphasis program. So it's the same fall emphasis, just it's falls under the national umbrella now. The newest local emphasis program that Inglewood and Denver have introduced is our cannabis industries. That became effective in October. So we're starting to get more involved in cannabis industries. And just as a caveat to that, electricians will fall under that emphasis program if you are doing work at a facility when we show up. So just keep that in mind if you guys are doing any new wiring for anybody in the cannabis industry. So a lot of people ask how we come to inspect a facility. A lot of our, we have the emphasis programs get us there, the national, regional, and local emphasis programs. But a majority, at least I can speak for my office, a majority of our visits come from complaints, whether it's an employee, a union member, a family member. We also get referrals from fire departments, police departments, emergency rooms, and when we have reports of fatalities or accidents. In our inspection process, we do not give notice. The only time that notice is given is if we have to somehow clear security at a location, and or we go to conduct an inspection and the employer is not there, then we will call them at that time and let them know that we're at their work site and that we need a representative to come meet us. We conduct an opening conference with a manager or owner, whoever is the most superior at that location. We present our credentials, let them know why we're there, what we're going to be doing. We let them know what their rights and responsibilities are under the OSHA Act. We will request documents, lockout, tagout programs, HAZCOM programs, respirator programs, any programs that we think we're going to need to look at. We'll talk to you about your company's background. If there is a union rep that needs to be contacted for that work site, we will ask the owner to do it at that time. And then we will answer any questions anybody may have about the inspection. We'll then do a walk around. We do a visual inspection of the facility. We do audio and video recordings and photos. You are welcome to take pictures and video alongside with us if that's what you choose to do. However, we do ask that you do not take pictures of our compliance officers. If we need to, we'll do sampling for noise and air contaminants. If we need to take any measurements, machine guarding, fall height, guardrail height, anything like that, we'll do that at that time. We do employee interviews. These are private and confidential. Managers cannot be present for the interviews. We have a lot of managers say, well, my employee feels uncomfortable. He wants me there. That's not going to work. We're not going to interview that employee. Or if we do need to enter that employee, we do have the right to subpoena that employee for a private interview. Doesn't happen very often, but it does. And then when we're wrapping up the inspection with the walk around with you, we'll do an exiting conference that will just tell you what possible violations we saw. We'll again address any questions you have about your rights and responsibilities, and then we'll discuss citation categories. The 4 that we have are repeat, where you've been cited before for a hazard similar in nature in the last 5 years. Willful, we do a lot of willful violations for trenching now, meaning that the employee or employer had total disregard for their employees' safety. Most of our citations that we issue are serious, and then other than serious citations that usually don't have a monetary penalty associated with them. And then if you are issued citations, you have three options. You can accept the citation. The citations will be mailed to you, certified mail. You have 15 business days to respond to those citations before they become final order. We recommend that you always call our office and schedule an informal conference with one of our supervisors. That has to be done within 15 business days of receiving your citation. I usually recommend that the day an employer receives their citations, they call and set up a phone call with my area director or assistant area director. And then you have your third option is to contest any and all citations. We do encourage you to hold an informal conference because you can come to a conclusion with our supervisors in office before needing to file a contest. So we usually recommend that you come in and have a discussion with my supervisors. They can either decrease the severity of the citations or they can decrease your penalty amounts, but that's kind of a case-by-case basis. So definitely make sure that you call the office and schedule an informal conference if you receive citations. Every year at the beginning of the year, OSHA can increase their penalty amounts. This year, they only increased it about $400. So these are the maximum citations. We do decrease penalty amounts on a case-by-case basis. If you're a small employer, you get a reduction. If the inspector believes that you guys do have a really good safety program in place, there was just a failure in there somehow, then they can take that into consideration as well. Willful and repeats are, a pretty big chunk, so you definitely don't want to receive a willful or a repeated citation for us. And failure to abate, meaning you guys had an inspection with us, you were issued citations, we gave you a date on to when the abatement was due to us. You did not file that abatement with us or ask for a modified abatement period, then you can receive a citation for $16,000 per day beyond your abatement date. If anyone is interested in reading our field operations manual, it is available on OSHA.gov, and it tells, this is what we are trained on how to do our inspections. So if you have any questions, it's a pretty hefty document. So if you need some late night reading, if you can't fall asleep, that's the document for you. So getting into the top 10 violations, this is most frequently cited during FY 2023. The national office has not issued any numbers for 2024. So I'll just briefly go over this top 10 with you guys. Fall protection, as you can see, there's a lot of fall protection citations issued nationwide, with the majority being fall protection in residential construction, lack of having it. We also have some flat roof work going on there, steep roofs, all depending on the pitch. Next one is hazard communication, mainly written programs. When I was doing inspections, written programs, SDSs, and access to SDSs were one of the ones that I frequently cited. I'm going to provide Paul with a copy of this presentation so you guys can have these at your fingertips if you would like. Number 3 is ladder safety. We see a lot of that in construction, not having it above 3 feet above the landing surface, not using theirs for the purpose, meaning you're using a extension ladder incorrectly, you're using an A-frame ladder as an extension ladder, things such as that. Making sure that you're removing defective ladders from service is another one we come across a lot. Scaffolding, again, fall protection, access to platforms, fully planked or decked, guardrails are a big thing for us on scaffolding as well. Powered industrial vehicles, we see a lot of this for training, not having your competent person, making sure that they're trained, not having refresher training is another one that I have cited in the past a lot. So just making sure you're keeping your PITs taken care of. Our region does have an emphasis program on powered industrial trucks. So if we show up to a work site, we will be looking at your powered industrial trucks if we see any on site. Lockout, tag out, again, big for your guys' industry, making sure that you guys have procedures in place or doing your inspections, doing your lockout, tag out procedures that must cover certain elements in a sequence, making sure you have those lockout, tag out procedures posted for specific, on specific pieces of equipment. We see a lot of this in machine shops, not having their lockout tag out program accessible to employees as required by our standard. Respiratory protection, when I was doing inspections, if the employer had a respiratory program, they probably weren't doing adequate medical evaluations or fit testing. During COVID, we had a lot of questions about N95s. Yes, N95s are considered a respirator. Yes, they require a fit test, and yes, they require a medical evaluation. So during that time, we had a lot of issues and had a lot of citations regarding that as well. So just making sure if you're required to have a program in place, you have a program and you're making sure you're doing your fit testing and your medical evaluations. Medical evaluations only have to be done once in there unless there is a change in that employee's health history, developing asthma, something like that would require you to have them medically evaluated again. Fall protection training. We do come across work sites where the employer does use fall protection, is using fall protection, but when we start talking to employees, the employees have not been adequately trained on the use of their specific harness or lanyard. So making sure you're getting those employees trained on the use and making sure that they are answering our questions, have effective training is a big thing for this fall protection standard. Eye and face protection in construction. We get this a lot. It's a small standard, so that's why there's only 2 citations that can be issued. But yeah, making sure your guys are using their face shields, have their eyeglasses on when it's required. And machine guarding in general industry. Machine guarding is always a top 10 for us across the board. So if you do have shops that you guys are developing products in, you need to make sure that you're guarding your machines. And then I'm just gonna go briefly break down some of the industries in construction. As you can see, it pretty much goes hand in hand with what was cited nationwide, regardless of industry. So not much change here. The one that is on here that I don't think you guys do a whole lot of work with, but I don't know, is excavations. So making sure trenches are protected. You have those protective systems in place. General industry, HAZCOM is always usually the #1 in there. Powered industrial trucks, respiratory protections, general wiring. That's where we get into facilities and there's extension cords everywhere, or no outlet covers, things such as that. Exit routes is big in general industry. Again, lockout, tag out, making sure you have your portable fire extinguishers, even if you're doing your annual checks on those, requiring general PPE requirements, and then our general duty clause. This is what we use when we don't have a specific standard, but we can determine that the hazard does exist and employees were exposed to that hazard. A lot of that for us was what we used during COVID, if we were citing employers for COVID. Other things we'll cite is if OSHA doesn't have a permissible exposure limit, but ACGIH has their TLV, we can use that for air contaminants. So. And then warehousing is a big emphasis area for our national office. So they put out this information. Again, this is for FY 2023. I don't see these changing too much over the next few years. So if you do have a warehousing facility, this is what we are going to be looking at when we come to inspect those facilities. Again, powered industrial trucks, exit routes, making sure you guys have a HAZCOM if you're storing any chemicals, electrical handling materials. That's usually safe storage for us. Again, the general duty clause is in there, fire extinguishers, fall protection. In warehousing, we see that on movable man lifts, if they're picking orders, things such as that, so that we do look at that to make sure that those are in place as well. And then I went into our database and pulled out our report for FY 24 for the Colorado offices, and these are what our offices, local offices, are citing. Respiratory silica in construction. We've been issuing some citations on that. Always fall protection, the duty to have it, and also again training. Respiratory protection, that's whether or not you have a program, you're doing your fit tests, you're doing a medical evaluation. So we definitely do look at that. Site inspections, 1926.20 is our site inspections at construction sites, making sure that those are being taken care of. Again, machine guarding, HAZCOM, eye and face protection in construction, excavation, having protective systems in place, and our general duty clause. So not much changes across the country as to what we're citing, as you guys can see. We're focusing on those main hazards. The completed rules that OSHA took care of this year is hazard communication. We are updated our hazard communication standard to meet the global harmonization system. This is kind of a side note. The global harmonization system has been updated, I think, a dozen times. This only updates our hazard communication standard to like their 7th edition. So the hazard communication program standard is probably going to continue to evolve, and we'll give you that information as we get it. OSHA did withdraw our COVID vaccine and testing emergency temporary standard. The reason they did that is they are developing an infectious disease standard that's going to cover all infectious diseases. So they're just looping COVID into that standard. Probably the update to the HAZCOM standard that is going to be affecting you guys is going to be labeling requirements. We're adding some flexibility for updating labels for shipment. We also included hazards not otherwise classified, and this is part of the paperwork. This is more hazards not otherwise classified is more for the manufacturers to include on their labeling, but I just put it in here just for your knowledge. They're gonna allow you to do bulk shipment labels that may be on the immediate container, transmitted with shipping papers, or transmitted electronic means to the person that it's being sent to. They're going to allow for the use of pictograms on labeling along with a DOT pictogram, and when there is a DOT placard on the container. So this is really large shipments, probably doesn't apply to you guys, but it may apply if you guys are receiving these shipments, making sure that that information is available. And we're also changing our small requirements for small packaging. That's probably one of the biggest complaints we've gotten about this standard is you guys are just using a little bit, taking it out of a bulk container and using a small bottle. So we're going to allow you to change the labeling on that, not require everything, make it a little easier for you guys to get these smaller bottles labeled. Even though it became effective in 2024, we are allowing leeway for employers, manufacturers, importers to get up to speed with us. So the ones that are going to affect you is going to be July 20th, 2026. You need to update your workplace labels, hazard communication program, and training. And then in January of 2028, the difference between mixtures and substances, that kind of also falls under the manufacturer, but you just need to make sure that as the manufacturer is updating their SDSs and their labeling, that that is transferring over to your workplace as well.
Meredith,
other
this is
thing-
Paul. I got a quick question.
Yeah.
For the global harmonization piece, now, with that, would you go over, right, all of your SDSs too, like that previous slide? When you do an update or you do a training on global harmonization, does it go into, you know, the different container and labeling just like that? Or is this
Yeah.
totally different when it comes to the safety data sheets?
No, so as the manufacturers are updating their SDSs, I don't know how, because they're supposed to send an SDS with every order that they're sending you. So if you're getting their new bottles, they should be sending you the SDSs along the way as well. But we would want you to follow up with them to make sure if there's something that you order on a regular basis, they may not send you the SDS. So you just want to make sure that you do have a current SDS. And again, they are required to do that by January 2026. And then we're giving you guys another 6-7 months to get those SDSs into your hands as well.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Uh-huh. And as you guys probably know, we updated our PPE standard in construction. It became effective last week, and it changes the verbiage in the standard to read that the PPE has to fit the worker, not the task. So this is for some of your smaller stature employees, especially fall protection, making sure that they have smaller harnesses, gloves too. If the employee has smaller hands and the gloves are just too big, we're gonna make sure that the gloves fit the person, the PPE fits the person. So that became effective January 13th. We are still working on our heat illness standard. I believe they closed the public comment period for the proposed standard last week as well. It had been open for comment since August. Everyone's biggest question is, when are we going to actually get it issued? We still have a lot of hoops to jump through before we pass it on to the House and Senate for approval. We hope to get that to them within the next 2 or 3 years. But the longest part of this process right now is, now that they've closed the comment period, someone from OSHA has to read through all those comments and take any feedback. And if we need to rewrite parts of the standard, then we'll rewrite it at that time. And then the approval process starts all over again. So it's not easy to make a new OSHA standard. It's easier for us to update our standards, but instituting a new standard takes a lot of time. We started working on the standard back in 2021. So that tells you just how long it takes us to get a standard written. And then we have to go through the approval process. So our hope is that it's taken care of within the next 2 or 3 years. It could take up to 5 or 7. That's why we have our national emphasis program on heat exposure. That's kind of a workaround for OSHA when we can't get a standard passed. So hopefully it's coming down the road. We'll see what happens in the next couple of years. So every year, OSHA issues a report on severe injuries. This year's report that they issued encompasses 2022 and 2023. On an average, there's 27 severe injuries reported to OSHA every day. And inpatient hospitalizations and amputations in 2022 totaled a little less than 20,000. So we're still injuring employees at work. I'm just going to kind of go over a little breakdown of what those injuries, what industry sector those injuries occur in. So as you can see, construction on that 4th line down, their hospitalizations have gone down a little, but their amputations have gone up. And this is construction wide. They didn't do a breakdown per construction industry, so this is just general numbers. But as you can see, we're lower. The total hospitalizations and amputations are slowly decreasing over the years, which is OSHA's goal, right? So this is per 1,000 full-time employee workers in the industry and the sector. Again, construction is slowly going down. Looks like it went up a little bit in between 2022 and 2023, but this is just averages of what we're seeing. This is data that we pull from injury and illness reports, the OSHA 300s that are electronically submitted to us every year. Those have to be submitted by March 2nd. So if your establishment is required to submit those, you'll probably want to start working on those. But this is just data that employers are providing to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and we're pulling our information from that as well. Top 3 events or exposures reported in 2022 and 2023. Caught in or caught betweens, falls to a lower level, struck by an object or equipment. Just examples of reports that we're getting on how employees are getting injured. And then the top 3 sources of the severe injury, machinery, machine guarding. That's one of the really big things. Structures and services, slips, trips, and falls. And then vehicles, falling off of a vehicle, things such as that. OSHA doesn't cover over the road travel. So when the employee is in travel status, driving to a job site, anything like that, that's covered by DOT, not by us. So these are accidents that have occurred either on a job site involving a vehicle in your yard, and an employee got injured. So this doesn't encompass over the road statistics. Again, heat-related illness, 451 heat-related inpatient hospitalizations in 22 and 23. So that's a pretty significant number. It can be indoor, outdoor heat. These again are examples of what OSHA put into their report. So it doesn't the employee doesn't necessarily have to be outside. So making sure indoor heat is controlled as well is important. Forklift related injuries, a little over 1,100. About 994 were hospitalizations and 196 were amputations. So as you can see, amputations go across all industries. So just making sure you guys have are trying to avoid those as always, right? Workplace violence is initiative that OSHA is looking into, mostly in healthcare settings, mental health facilities, but we do see it in convenience stores. Actually, we had a employee killed, it was either this year or last year, by her stalker at her workplace of work in Colorado. So you just want to make sure you're protecting your employees. Again, most of these were retail, and then retail healthcare, social assistance, and some in manufacturing, employees fighting with each other. Food processing, OSHA's starting to look more into the meat processing facilities for amputations, caught in betweens, things such as that. So we had 440 severe injuries reported to us in 22 and 23, and 75% of those are involved in amputation. And does anyone have any questions for me while you guys, if we are discussing questions, I'll put my contact information up here. Someone had also wanted the area office phone numbers, so I'll go back through my slides and put that back up for you too. But if you guys need my number or my email address, that's it right there.
And you said you'll be sending us this, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Tom.
No, I was just gonna ask, you said you're gonna be sending this slide, or this slideshow to us?
Yeah, I'll send it to Paul and have him distribute it to you guys.
So
right,
yes,
perfect.
Tom, very thankful for Holly, Andrew. She is kind of in the back right here, taking care of all the minutes and the notes and the links. And Meredith, yeah, Meredith had said she can go ahead and send that to me, and I'll be sure that you guys get it. That way you have something to reference, for sure. And thank you, Meredith. All great information. Goodness, falls, God, just it doubles, right? When it comes to other recordables. So once again, just a message to the group, right? I mean, I think falls have been #1 now for the past 20 some odd years, Meredith, something like that. Maybe
Yeah,
even longer.
they're always in the top 10. So
Yeah. And construction, right? Construction is a big hitter, so that falls right under all realms. So great information, really, really good information, and some information that you shared, Meredith, too, made me think that maybe there's some different things within our safety or different things that we can get out to our contractors to help out with some of that stuff, you know. But what's really great about it, the things that you mentioned, as far as the big hitters and things like that, we've got a few of those things on topic, right, for our 2025 schedule. And so it looks to me like we're pretty on, or we're on course, right, with the initiative. So, great information. I know that with the new administration coming in, I know that you guys are kind of in standby right now to kind of see what the big initiatives are going to be amongst OSHA. But all of this is really, really awesome information. I went ahead to the group and made the adjustments to our calendar that we discussed prior to Meredith's presentation. And so if everybody can take a look at that, I don't mind making these adjustments early on in the year. So let's just be sure that these are the topics. And if there's other topics that we need to focus in on, we'd love to hear from you. Now, Meredith, you and your team are so awesome in helping us out, and we really are humbled to it. Thank you so much. And perhaps I could call on you for some of these other safety topics that we discussed as far as the schedule goes. I know that we always like to hear from y'all when it comes to the OSHA heat. You know, we like to hear from y'all when it comes to, you know, the OSHA heat, right? And then, and also maybe I can look in when we go to do our borrowed worker stuff. I know that you guys have got some stuff that you really want to make sure is documented, right, and taken care of. So all great stuff. Any last questions for Meredith, or any comments or suggestions for the group? Thank you, Meredith, so much. We so appreciate your time. Thank you to everybody that joined us for this fine safety forum on this beautiful Wednesday, January day. Really appreciate it. Be safe out there. It's cold and snowy and slick. And want to make sure that if you need anything as an IEC Rocky Mountain contractor or industry partner, let us know, and we'll look into seeing how we can help. Okay, so once again, our next forum is scheduled for February 26th, and we're going to go over how you and your organization can become a little bit more fortified when it comes to your safety efforts and initiatives by going over the IEC Rocky Mountain Safety Assessment Form. The safety assessment form, once again, it's not there for a competition. It's not there to put you above anybody else. It's really for you to do an assessment within your own organization and see where you can become stronger. You know, we all know that safety is something that we have to deal with every single day, and if we're not proactive about it, we will be reactive to it. So please, when it comes to that safety assessment, when you receive that email, please fill that out and be as honest as you can about it, right? Because it's not a competition. You're really there to evaluate, okay, what your organization needs to become better. So any last questions or comments? Don't make it too easy for me on a Wednesday morning. Thanks everybody again for coming. Meredith, you're so awesome. Let me know, just send that presentation whenever you get a chance, and we'll be sure the entire group gets it. And then I'll send out some calendar dates to you, Meredith, to see if you can make it for some of our other safety initiatives. And
all right, sounds good.
yeah, and Happy New Year to everybody. Be safe out there.
Well, I did put the link for the safety assessment is in the chat for everybody.
The link to the safety assessment is in the chat, okay? So be sure to hit that link, pin it to your taskbar. And if you have to, you might not be the person that fills all that information out, but pull together your resources and do the best you can to complete it with as much honesty as you can, because that will really help us identify areas that we can bring into safety forums or education sessions to help you out. So good luck to everybody. Thank you again. We got a few more messages popping in. Safety assessment. Thank you, Holly. Very cool. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Joe.